What if you could program a human being with a single, terrifying directive? Deliver devastating knockouts. A fighter who doesn't just win, but terminates his opponents. Today, we're dissecting the Croatian-built cyborg designed to purge the more elite. Roberto Soldić, better known as RoboCop, is a man who once neutralized a future UFC champion, claimed titles into separate weight classes, and continues to execute chilling, one-shot finishes. But his journey almost ended before it truly began, thanks to one critical mistake. Born in war-torn Bosnia, a young Roberto was drawn to judo. But everything changed the moment he saw the legendary Crow-Cop unleash his signature head kick. That was it. A new path was chosen. From his idol, he didn't just inherit the dream, but also a weapon, an immortal classic known as the southpaw fork, a devastating rear leg kick hidden behind a distracting cross. He quickly mastered the art of counter-striking, patrolling the cage with the cold, tactical precision of a machine. He neutralized every takedown attempt, and when he fired his shots, they left a trail of destruction. It was this unforgiving, calculated approach that earned him a name that would strike fear into his opponents, a name he would have to live up to, time and time again. RoboCop. But every machine has its limits, and Soldić was about to discover his against a future Bellator champion, Yaroslav Amosov, in a brutal, back-and-forth war between two of Europe's hottest prospects. The fight went to the scorecards. For the first time, Soldić tasted defeat by a split decision. It was a bitter lesson, but a necessary one. From that day forward, Soldić made a vow to himself. The judges would never decide his fate again. He moved to Germany, retooled his entire game, and even stepped into the boxing ring as an experiment, where he scored for knockouts in 4 fights, proving his power translated to any rule set. Then, in 2017, he returned to more different, more dangerous animal. This string of brutal finishes was impossible to ignore. At just 22 years old, he got the call from Europe's most prestigious league. It's the very same stage where future UFC champions had cut their teeth. But the welterweight throne was already occupied. For 3 long years, it belonged to a man known as the Tasmanian Devil, Boris Makowski, a submission artist who choked the hope out of his opponents with terrifying precision. A collision was inevitable. Makowski was scheduled for his 4th title defense, but not against Soldić. His opponent was supposed to be another future UFC champion, Dricus Du Plessis. But fate, as it so often does in combat sports, had other plans. An injury forced Du Plessis out of the fight. With just 1 week's notice, the organizers made a call to the one man they knew would guarantee chaos: RoboCop. From the opening bell, the short-notice challenger showed zero respect for the champion. He immediately began his systematic assault, launching attacks from his southpaw stance and masterfully transitioning his powerful strikes from the liver to the head. The champion was confused. The crowd was stunned. By the second round, Makowski's game plan was in tatters. He was lost, swinging at air, while the Croatian cyborg was just getting started, relentlessly marching forward. In the 3rd round, the champion paid dearly for a single low kick, visibly wanting no part of the stand-up war. He desperately forced the fight to the ground. A heel hook attempt gave the local fans a flicker of hope, but it was short-lived. Roberto quickly unloaded a barrage of ground and pound, bringing the inevitable change of power 1 step closer. As the bell sounded for the break, the storm in Makowski's head was too much to calm. His corner had seen enough. They refused to let their fighter continue. A new king had been crowned, but the chaos didn't end when Makowski's corner threw in the towel. Soldić's victory celebration was cut short by a chaotic post-fight confrontation with the very man he was never supposed to fight, the future UFC champion, Dricus Du Plessis. Words were exchanged, shoves were thrown, and in the end, there was only one way to settle it. The promotion wasted no time and booked the fight. The new king would face the challenger who never lost his spot. On paper, Du Plessis was a fellow kickboxer with a formidable 11-1 record, but in reality, He was a tactical genius who often relied on his powerful wrestling to drag his opponents into deep water and drown them with submissions. From the opening bell, it was classic RoboCop. He stalked forward, unleashing his signature combinations with brutal intent, turning the pressure up to 100. For a moment, it seemed like another routine execution was underway. But Du Plessis had a different plan. He weathered the initial storm, and then he flipped the entire script. A perfectly timed takedown changed the landscape of the fight. Suddenly, the hunter became the hunted. Du Plessis latched onto Soldić's back like a backpack, locked in a rear-naked choke, and squeezed with everything he had. The seemingly unstoppable cyborg was just seconds from being shut down. He was saved by the bell, but the damage was done. In the second round, the system failure was complete. An exhausted Soldić was now the one taking damage, eating painful low kicks and getting caught with counter shots. His own attacks became predictable. He lunged in, looking for the kill shot, and walked straight into a trap. A perfectly timed left hook from Du Plessis exploded on his chin. And just like that, the seemingly invincible champion was on the canvas, staring up at the lights. In a stunning turn of events, RoboCop had been defeated. In a post-fight interview, Soldić admitted his critical error. "I lost control of myself. It was a terrible idea to fly in head first, chasing the knockout in the first round." The machine had been humbled. The question now was, could he be rebuilt? The loss was a public humiliation, but the league's management saw gold. The fight was too action-packed, the story too compelling. They immediately booked the rematch. The build-up was electric, fueled by a raw, punk rock promo campaign that highlighted the bad blood between the two champions. This wasn't just for the belt anymore. This was personal. This time, a different version of RoboCop entered the cage. He wasn't the wild, head-hunting machine from the first fight. He was colder, more calculated. He came with a critical software update. Patience. He returned to the weapon he'd neglected. The devastating combinations ending with his signature kicks. He patiently controlled the fights from a distance, using subtle feints to probe for weaknesses and draw reactions. The new approach was frustrating Du Plessis, who was expecting the same reckless brawler. Growing impatient, the champion started taking risks, forcing the action and lunging in, exactly as the reprogrammed Soldić had planned. In the second round, the assault intensified. Soldić added a new layer to his attack, relentlessly bombing the body and punishing the midsection. He was systematically dismantling the champion, piece by piece. Du Plessis had no answers, even on the ground, a world where he had dominated before. He was now completely neutralized. Then, it happened. The ghost of the first fight was exercised in a single, brutal moment. As Du Plessis stepped in, the infamous southpaw fought the high kick hidden behind the cross-landed flush. The champion crashed to the canvas. This time, there was no rush, no loss of control. Soldić calmly followed him to the mat and subjected him to an unbearable level of mechanical stress. A merciless ground and pound assault that left no doubt. Activating his cold code of vengeance, RoboCop had completely suppressed his own recklessness and executed the perfect fight. He had reclaimed his throne, and that knockout loss, for Dricus Du Plessis, it remains the last defeat on his record to this day, a testament to the sheer destructive power of a perfected RoboCop. With his throne reclaimed, Soldić didn't just rule the division, he terrorized it. His reign became a highlight reel of swift, merciless executions. He first warmed up with a quick, first-round demolition of a Brazilian grappling specialist, barely breaking a sweat. But it was his next fight where he added a terrifying new weapon to his arsenal. Unpredictable, spinning Thai-style kicks. He unleashed a high kick so fast, so brutal, that it instantly sent his opponent to another dimension, securing what would be his 13th career knockout. On the very same night, another man was making a statement. An undefeated Polish powerhouse, Christian Krzybowski, extended his own winning streak and earned himself a title shot. He was bigger, stronger, and he wasn't intimidated. In the build-up to the fight, Krzybowski made a bold promise. Savage shots will be flying all over the cage. He was right about the savage shots. He was just wrong about their direction. As the fight began, Khachanovsky marched forward, ready for a war. But he never got one. He walked directly into the kill zone. A single, perfectly placed left hand from Soldić touch really instantly short-circuited the challenger, leaving him stiff and unconscious on the canvas for the better part of 5 minutes. And while the emergency medical team scrambled to bring Khachanovsky back to the world of the living, the Croatian champion, ever the showman, was already entertaining the crowd. His mission complete, he had proven, once again, that in his world, there was no room for error. One mistake, and it was lights out. The RoboCop had become an executioner, having dispatched every knockout artist and brawler in his path. The matchmakers decided to test RoboCop's system against a different kind of threat. In September 2019, they pitted the 24-year-old champion against Mitja Peterzak, a gifted wrestler with a surprisingly heavy right-hander man, who would later tarnish the perfect record of the highly touted Shamil Musaev. The challenger knew better than to play with fire. He had no intention of engaging in a stand-up battle with the Croatian demolition machine. From the opening seconds, Peterzak's plan was clear. Get the fight to the ground, no matter the cost. He absorbed punishing, rib-crunching kicks just to catch a leg and force a grappling exchange. For the first time in a long while, Soldić was forced to reboot his old judo programming. He found himself defending takedowns and scrambling for position against a relentless opponent. But even in a world he rarely visited, RoboCop proved he was more than just a striker. He masterfully alternated between single, powerful counter shots and sprawling to defend takedown attempts. Late in the round, Peterzak even landed a clean takedown that would have made Kamaru Usman proud. The challenger may have lacked the refined striking technique of Soldić's previous opponents, but he compensated with sheer toughness and an iron will, managing to survive the storm and drag the champion all the way to the final bell. In the end, Soldić secured a victory. But it wasn't the kind his fans were used to. It was a win by decision. This grueling fight served as a crucial test, and having proven his mettle, Soldić immediately set his sights on a new, more dangerous challenge. He announced he was moving up to the middleweight division, a land of giants weighing up to 185 pounds. And for his debut, he called out a legend and a former kingpin of that very division, the Polish powerhouse, named Koledov. To understand the magnitude of this fight, you have to understand who Maimed Koledov was. He wasn't just a champion, he was the soul of KSW, a man who started with the promotion back in 2007. He was a living legend with a terrifying base in Kyokushinkaze. He captured the light heavyweight title, then went on a record-breaking 13-fight tier, a 6-year reign of terror where he didn't just beat his opponents, he annihilated them, finishing fights on the feet and on the ground with equal, surgical precision. He then became a double champion by conquering the middleweight division, even stepping up to fight heavyweights just for the challenge. The UF came calling. But Momed's loyalty to the Polish fans, who adored him, kept him in KSW. Even at 41 years old, he was still at the peak of his powers, coming off a spectacular flying switch kick knockout that went viral. This wasn't just a fight, it was a battle of generations, a clash that packed an entire arena with more purists. From the opening bell, Koledov, fighting out of his traditional karate stance, launched a series of blistering kicks. He moved with the speed of a man half his age, even securing a takedown. For a moment, it looked like the legend's experience might be too much, but then, RoboCop's system adapted. He once again rebooted his old judo software, executing a picture-perfect Harigoshi hip throw to reverse the position. Back on the feet, he unleashed the weapon that started it all. The southpaw fork. The kick landed, and the entire dynamic of the fight shifted. Soldić began investing heavily in body shots, sapping the legend's gas tank. The tide was turning, and then, in the heat of a wild exchange, it happened. Koledov, with his hands down, rolled the dice in a firefight with the most dangerous gunslinger in Europe. A thunderous left hand from Soldic connected, and for the first time in 45 professional fights, the legend was sent into a deep, unconscious sleep. The aftermath was brutal. Soldić suffered multiple facial fractures, requiring surgery and the insertion of a metal plate. At just 26 years old, Roberto Soldić had done the unthinkable. With his 20th victory and 17th knockout, he was now the simultaneous two-division champion. He had conquered Europe. There was nothing left for him to prove. A new chapter was about to begin. By early 2022, RoboCop was the hottest free agent in all of mixed martial arts. Every major promotion in the world, including the UFC, was trying to recruit him into their ranks. But when the offer came to the table, Soldić flatly rejected their offer, calling the financial terms a joke. He wasn't going to fight for a handful of crackers. Instead, he signed a landmark deal with the Asian Muay giant, One Championship. Why one? Because they offered him a unique opportunity, the chance to conquer multiple sports. I chose one because they embody all martial arts, he explained. They gave me a path to belts in kickboxing, Muay Thai, Mo, and even boxing. It was a bold, ambitious move. But his grand debut in the global stage would quickly turn into a bizarre disaster. His first opponent was the undefeated Russian powerhouse, Murad Ramazanov. Soldić's game plan was immediately tested, as Ramazanov relentlessly pursued the takedown. But just as the fight was heating up, it came to a screeching halt. Ramazanov, in a clinch against the fence, threw a knee that landed catastrophically low. The impact was sickening. Soldić crumpled to the canvas in agony. The foul was so severe that he was unable to continue, and the highly anticipated debut was anticlimactically ruled a no contest. 6 months later, Soldić was back, this time against a certified madman and former champion, Sebastian the Bandit Kadastan. Kadastan was a wild, unpredictable brawler who blended a chaotic fighting style with masterful Muay Thai skills. Out of his 15 wins, 13 were by savage knockout. This was guaranteed fireworks. From the start, RoboCop looked like his old self, systematically breaking Kadastan down with precise, powerful shots. He dominated the first round so thoroughly that it looked like another one-sided execution. But then, in the second round, the Bandit lived up to his name. He threw a perfectly timed counter elbow that connected flush, as Soldić was throwing his own left hand. The shot landed clean, and in one of the biggest upsets of the year, the Croatian machine was knocked out cold. It wasn't the first time RoboCop had faced a system failure, but after a bizarre debut and a shocking knockout loss, questions began to surface. Could he truly be rebuilt to compete with the best in the world? For a year and a half, the machine went silent. Following the shocking loss, Soldić vanished from the public eye, battling a series of nagging injuries that required significant time to heal. It was a period of recalibration, of rebuilding the system from the ground up. Then, in February of 2025, the return was announced, and his opponent was no easy tune-up fight. It was Sagid Gassane Arslanali of a Dagestani wrecking machine, and a Wushu Sanda champion who, in his entire career, had never once left the fight in the hands of the judges. This time, as RoboCop walked to the cage, there were no emotions on his face, no frustration, no uncertainty. There was only the cold, calculating algorithm of justice. The fight began, and the algorithm executed its prime directive. He closed the distance, and as Arslan Aliyev stepped in, Soldić unleashed the trademark cross that had ended so many before him. The connection was flawless, instantly shutting down his opponent's neural network. It was a brutal, one-shot termination, an immediate candidate for knockout of the year. But in a chilling display of his programming, he landed one final, unnecessary shot on his opponent's unconscious body before the referee could intervene. In his post-fight interview, the machine showed a flicker of humanity. "I apologize for the extra punch," he said. "The referee was behind my back. This is a fight. These things happen." But it was his next words that sent a shockwave through the entire sport. Putting the reigning UFC Middleweight Champion on notice, I fought Dricus twice, and in the last fight, I knocked him out. I believe I can beat him again. Now 30 years old, Roberto Soldić remains one of the most terrifying knockout artists in all of MMA. And while the last 3 years have been anything but perfect, the message from his latest performance is clear. RoboCop has been rebuilt, rebooted, and his mission is far from over. He promises that more jaws will rattle, and more bodies will fall. The era of the Croatian cyborg has only just begun.